Why do we get glued to our phones when we have a more important task to do? Why do we keep getting distracted with Netflix while we're working on something important? Why can it be so difficult to put such little effort into tasks that will only benefit us in the future? There are many factors that could apply to these scenarios, but a major player in this feud is dopamine. I'm sure you've heard this word get thrown around the internet many times.
Dopamine is the...
But not too many videos explain exactly how dopamine is used in our brain to get us to engage in specific activities. So, what is dopamine? Dopamine, in short, is a chemical located throughout the brain that can increase or decrease activations of different neurons. This brain chemical is typically associated with pleasure, desire, motivation, movement, learning, focus, novelty, anticipation, addiction, curiosity, and many more bodily functions. But for this video, the only three you need to worry about are desire, motivation, and pleasure. So let's say that you're thinking of getting food and decide to get pizza. You go to the pizza place your order, and once you get the pizza, you eat it right away and leave completely satisfied. In this scenario, when the pizza first came to mind, your dopamine levels spiked up to what is called a peak of dopamine. This is essentially your brain telling you that eating a pizza would be a very pleasurable experience. This experience is what creates the desire. After that pleasurable thought of pizza subsides, your dopamine levels drop down below baseline levels, creating what is called a dopamine trough. These lower levels of dopamine create a sense of discomfort, which is your brain's way of motivating you to get that pizza. Then once you get the pizza and eat it, dopamine levels shoot back up, leaving you with a feeling of pleasure. A good way to visualize this process of dopamine is to imagine your dopamine levels as a wave pool. When there are big waves in the pool, it creates big highs and deep lows. With too many big waves, a lot of water splashes out of the pool, and over time, that leaves less water to work with for the day. In other words, repeated high pleasure experience will lead to less dopamine stores for the day, creating a lower baseline level. Another key concept to understand how dopamine works is reward prediction error. Now, let's go back to the pizza scenario again. You have this idea in your mind of a good tasting pizza from a place you're used to ordering from. Your dopamine levels rise from your desire for that idealized pizza, followed by a dip because you don't have the pizza yet. You then go to the pizza place to fix that discomfort. You take the order, bring it home, but you find out that they gave you the wrong pizza. But since you're hungry, you decide to eat it anyway. And let's say that the pizza didn't taste good at all. Now, your dopamine levels drop even lower, far below your baseline levels. This is what reward prediction error is. It's essentially the reality that doesn't match your expectations. Your brain subconsciously calculates the real outcome minus the expected outcome, creating that real reward feeling. Now, let's move on to the biggest killer that dopamine creates for us, which is addiction. Addiction develops from a concept called reward contingent learning. Our dopamine systems don't just compare the height of our first peak with the outcome of the experience, but it subconsciously learns what happens in between the desire and the pleasure. This happens so the brain subconsciously knows what it needs to do to acquire that desired outcome. Now, how does this lead to addiction? Since the dopamine system analyzes what happens from desire to pleasure, a big factor the system explores is the efficiency or time it takes to reach the desired outcome. For example, consuming drugs like cocaine release copious amounts of dopamine almost instantaneously. This instantaneous release of dopamine makes your brain associate just the consumption of cocaine with high pleasure. So, instead of the dopamine system favoring a long workout to release a moderate amount of dopamine, it would rather have cocaine for a large hit of dopamine due to not just the amount of dopamine released, but the amount of time and effort it takes to reach that level of pleasure. This behavior will start to lead to repeated consumption, which then turns into addiction. This behavior of repeated consumption will also create lower peaks in dopamine, but even deeper troughs, making the activity less pleasurable the more it's done. But this in turn makes it even more addicting due to the stronger cravings caused by the deepened troughs. Now, this doesn't just apply for drugs, but for other instantly gratifying activities that are present in the modern world, just like social media. This is one of the sole reasons people don't feel like doing productive things anymore, due to short duration tasks being more favorable and reinforced rather than long-term goals, which are now perceived as unfavorable due to our dopamine system. Now that you have a good understanding of dopamine, how are we going to leverage this information? Let's go over different tools that maintain and increase your baseline dopamine levels so you have a greater state of well-being and elevated mood throughout the day. And just a reminder, this is all for informational purposes only. I am not a medical or healthcare professional, so make sure to consult with a healthcare professional before starting any new supplement or routine protocols pertaining to this video, along with doing your own research too. Tool number 1, sleep. There's only a limited amount of dopamine that is stored every single day, so the concept is very simple. Get around 8 hours of quality sleep each day, and in that state, your dopamine levels will quite literally reset for the entire day. Tool number 2, sunlight. Direct light from the sun triggers a domino effect of hormones that start off your body's natural processes, including neuromodulators like dopamine. Typically, this should be done upon waking up to set your mood for the day. Tool number 3, exercise. Another very simple concept. Any sort of movement exercise like running, walking, or weightlifting will increase baseline dopamine levels. Tool number 4, cold exposure. Deliberate cold exposure has been shown to increase dopamine levels that last for several hours. You can either use a cold plunger, but for the majority of people that don't have access to that, a cold shower may suffice. Benefits of cold exposure range from temperature levels of 37 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit for 1 to 3 minutes. I would recommend doing this early on in the day to maintain an elevated mood throughout the day. And just a side note, I would not recommend doing cold exposure after weightlifting if you have the goal of muscle building, because doing this actually inhibits muscle growth and recovery. Tool number 5, proper nutrition. Sure, you hear it a lot, but you are what you eat. A healthy diet won't just boost well-being and dopamine, but basically every important function and process in your body. Now, a specific nutrient you can focus on to specifically optimize dopamine is L-tyrosine. Tyrosine is a major building block for dopamine synthesis, in other words, the production of dopamine. Few studies have shown that consumption of L-tyrosine ranging from 250 to 1,000 milligrams, depending on weight, increases cognitive performance in short-term tasks. Supplementing tyrosine has been shown to be most beneficial during low levels of dopamine, like high-stress scenarios or low depressive episodes. You could either supplement tyrosine or get a sufficient amount from foods like meat, poultry, dairy, and nuts. Tool number 6, restrict high-pleasure activities in the morning. Now, imagine your dopamine is being stored in a lemon. When you first squeeze the lemon, it's very easy to get the juice out. When you give it a hard squeeze, it's easy to get a lot of juice out. Now, when you try to squeeze it again, less juice comes out, making it harder to squeeze even more juice out. In other words, if you indulge in high pleasurable activities after waking, that stored dopamine is much easier to drain. It's important to replace these activities with productive behaviors early in the day so you have enough dopamine to reinforce those less pleasurable but productive activities. Tool number 7, wait. Moments after highly rewarding activities will give us dopamine troughs, and what people tend to do to compensate for that is to engage in even more pleasurable pursuits like scrolling on social media. This will only lead to more troughs, leaving you with a worsened mood for the rest of the day. It's crucial to know that dopamine levels will always eventually turn back to baseline levels, or at least higher than the trough. Instead of scrolling, you could do less rewarding tasks like reading, showering, or even taking a nap, which works best for me. Tool number 8, beating procrastination with a harder task. Let's say you have an assignment due tonight, but currently you're completely unmotivated and don't have the willpower to start it. The best solution to this problem is to either wait it out, like the previous tool, or to do an even more effortful or painful task. This is due to not just the proportionality between a dopamine peak and trough, but the steepness of reaching that peak and the steepness of the trough. That so-called harder task will make you reach a deeper trough for just a little while, and that steepness will help your dopamine bounce back with a quick spike. This can more than likely help kickstart that task you've been putting off for a while, and all it takes is a little of momentum. A quick example would be cold exposure for most people. The quicker the peak is reached, the faster the trough is. And this goes the other way around too. The quicker the trough, the quicker the peak. Tool number 9, making effort the reward. This concept is often referred to as growth mindset. This is where you apply the mindset of if you're not able to do something efficiently, you adopt the idea that you can't do it yet. Normally when we're given a task, we're expecting ourselves to perform a certain way, and this can actually set you up for failure. This is because of reward prediction error, expecting a rewarding outcome from the pursuit of the desire, and not quite getting that reward that we were expecting. It's best to look at the reward as not being capable yet, because it will be attainable given repetition. So basically have the expectation that you're not capable yet, and that you will be in the future. Anyways, basically all you need to know is that you can somewhat control your dopamine levels to a certain extent. Just no high pleasures in the morning, be healthy, watch addictions, and don't have too high expectations for goals that you can't achieve yet.